Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our class. We're continuing the Kabbalah of Marriage today. So we're very excited to see everybody back again. And Ruchim Habayim B'Shem Hashem. And we continue where we left off. We're going to talk a little bit today about some of the rituals associated with marriage. Some of the very spiritual rituals. You know, marriage is not just a random thing. It's according to the Kabbalah, marriage is the coming together of two soulmates, two half souls that were lost to each other, and they find each other and they come back together. It's the coming together of the masculine and the feminine. We spoke a bit about that. And today I want to speak about some of the rituals associated with the marriage. I'm going to start with, at the beginning of the wedding, we have a ritual called the badeking. It's a very misunderstood ritual, a very misunderstood tradition. It goes back thousands of years. Badeking, what's the badeking? The badeking is just before the bride and groom, before they go to the wedding. The groom is brought into the bridal chamber, and he goes over to the bride and he places a veil over her face. It's a very well accepted custom. In most circles, they do it. It's called a badeking. Badeking comes from the Yiddish word. Dek means to cover. Badek means to cover up. And a badeking is, that's the name of the ceremony. And so everybody comes in. Some people, they sing a joyous song, other one more of a introspective song. Regardless what the song is, when you come in, and the chassan walks over to the kala, with great drama, he takes the veil and places it lovingly over her face. And everybody is all excited about that. And after that, they bless the bride. The rabbi blesses the bride. The parents bless the bride. And they also usually bless the chassan thereafter. That is more or less the ceremony of the badeking. But the main focal point of that part of the wedding is the covering up of the kala's face. Now one wonders, what is the purpose of that? In fact, you would think it's quite the opposite. I mean, Kala should be seen when she's married, being married off. Why would he cover up her face? You know, what's the deep spiritual idea of covering the face of the Kala? So the usual explanation that's given is that the idea is that before they go to the wedding, the chassan has to go in before he covers up her face to see that he is marrying the right girl. Okay, because the tradition was to have the face covered, so that he goes in to see that he's marrying the right person. Because we know in Judaism, we have a tradition of being duped. We have the duping tradition of the Jewish people. What's the duping tradition? It's in next week's parsha. This week's parsha about the story of Jacob, and he came to find the bride, and he wanted to marry the love of his life was a girl named Rachel, who was a cousin of his, and he wanted badly to marry Rachel because Rachel was very beautiful. And his father-in-law, after he worked 7 years to be worthy of receiving this bride, his father-in-law Lavan duped him and did the old switcheroo. And instead of giving him the beautiful Rachel, he gave her the older sister Leah. And he wakes up the next morning, and I guess they look pretty similar. Wakes up in the morning, it was dark in those days at night, and wakes up, he sees, he got the wrong bride. And then Lavan, the Aramite, he tells him, he says, well, the tradition by us is that you never marry off the younger sister before the older sister. So that's why you have to marry Kala. You have to marry first Leah. Now first you have to work another 7 years to get my second daughter, her sister, Rachel. So you work another 7 years, and so that's why the tradition is that before you go to the wedding, you go and check that you have the right bride. That's what all the rabbis have been telling people for many, many years. You go to every wedding, you hear the same story always. If you come early to the wedding, you'll hear it, of course. If you come late, you never hear anything. But for people that come early and come to the badecking part, or if you're invited to the badecking part, you would have heard that story. But it still falls short, that explanation. It's not very understood because what's really going on over there? Why is it then called the badecking, the covering up, the veiling? It should be it should be called the checking out the goods ceremony, right? Checking out your bride ceremony. Make sure you're marrying the right bride and the right groom. Why call it the badecking? The ceremony is the covering up, not the uncovering. It's not called the unveiling, chas v'shalom. It's called the veiling ceremony. Right? If it was to check that you have the right bride, you should unveil the bride, not veil her. So there was another explanation that I used to give to people, and people actually like that explanation. I've been giving it for years. And many people have also been giving similar explanations around the same time or thereafter. And that is that the message of the marriage ceremony or the badecking ceremony is to tell the groom and the bride, for that matter, that what's most important in life when you marry someone is not to look at the externals, but to always look for the internals. And that's why you place the veil over the Kala's face, because people have a tendency, we live today in a physical world where everything is the externals, the way you look on the outside. We're in the Hollywood generation where everybody looks what the externals are, and what the Torah is telling us, no, that's not what's important. If you want your marriage to work, don't marry a person for their externals. I mean, it's important. The externals are good. You have to marry someone pretty and someone handsome. But that's not really where it's at. What you're really marrying is their soul. You have to be able to dig beneath the person. You're marrying a soulmate. That's who you're marrying. And that's the whole message of the badecking, is that the outside, the externals are deceitful. The main thing is, who is the person on the inside? When you live together for many years, and you're married for many years, please God, and you look at each other, maybe the externals are not so beautiful anymore. Maybe the person's a little bit old, and they lose that youthful charm. But real marriage, the marriage is so strong at that point that you connect now on a soul level. And even the externals start to look beautiful to you, because even though the person might be all crumpled up and creased and old looking, but to you're not looking at that anymore. You're looking at the inside. And that is the teaching of the badecking. I remember many years ago, somebody brought up that the Rebbe used to meet people on Sunday morning. He used to meet thousands of people. He used to come up to the Rebbe for little mini audiences with him. He had like a couple of seconds with the Rebbe. What the Rebbe used to do was, he said, when two Jews meet together, they should try to help a third Jew. By the way, can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you could hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I'll make sure. So people used to come, and the Rebbe used to give out dollars on Sunday morning, and then he'd give everyone a bracha. The main thing was the blessing you received from the Rebbe, and through that he inspired you to give a little tzedakah, to do a mitzvah. So there were people from all walks of life that used to come to the Rebbe. So there was one Israeli, there was a little chutzpahdik, and he brought the Israeli contestant for Miss Universe or something, Miss Israel, whatever she was. I don't know exactly how those contests work. But they brought up to the Rebbe the most beautiful girl of Israel, kind of thing, right? And who's going to go as the contestant for the Miss Universe pageant. And the Israeli agent, he brought her over. And said, "This is the Miss Israel." So the Rebbe didn't flinch. I'm sure a great rabbi, he knows what's going on in the world, right? He didn't flinch. And he gave her a blessing. But he told her, he said, you have to realize that by Jews, King Solomon says that sheker achein v'hevel yofi, that charm is deceitful and beauty is nothingness. A God-fearing woman is what Hashem praises. Now the Rebbe said, of course you'll ask, what is King Solomon dismissing? The physical beauty? He's saying it's nothing. Only a God-fearing person is important. Like Hashem created it. How could you say? How could King Solomon totally dismiss it? So the Rebbe explained to him. He said he wasn't dismissing it. He was saying that beauty, on its own, beauty in a void, beauty, physical beauty without any inner qualities, that is nothing. That is nothingness. It's emptiness. But if it comes together with the inner qualities, then the external beauty is also fantastic. So he's not dismissing, King Solomon was not dismissing physical beauty. He was saying physical beauty counts only if you also have inner beauty. Then the inner beauty makes the person shine. You know, and we know in Yiddish there's a thing called chen. You know what chen is? Beauty is beauty, but you say sometimes a person has a lot of chen. In English we say charm, but it's a different word, chen. Chen is like, it's like a kindness, inner kindness, you know. What does the word chen mean? You say that person is chenedik. In Yiddish they say, oh, chen. What does that mean? In the olden days, that's what the shadchanim used to say. When someone wasn't pretty, they'd ask, is the girl pretty? They said, no, she has a lot of chen. It's chen. So it used to be a joke. They used to say, when they say the girl has a lot of chen, don't date her. But the truth of the matter is that that's what the Rebbe was saying. The Rebbe was saying that what is chen? Chen is an inner beauty that shines to the outside. Sometimes you see a person that doesn't have amazing external features, but they have like a shine on their face, you know, a shine. You know what a shine is? Some people have like a bright spark. Their face lights up. It's the inner beauty. It's like the soul animates their face. So maybe the features are not, you know, the perfect features, but they have personality. They have a soul that lights up their total persona. So they have personality that comes through. That's chen. And that's what the Rebbe was telling this Miss America. He was saying, listen carefully. If you want to know what real beauty is, that's what King Solomon is saying. Beauty on its own is nothingness. It's not. It's void. But together with the inner personality, when you're Yirat Hashem, when you're a God-fearing person, and you have good inner qualities, then that is the way to win the Miss Universe, the real Miss Universe, the real pageant. And the Rebbe says, I want you to share this thought with all your friends. He says to the girl, he made it right away a shaliach, he made her emissary. He said, I want you to share this with all your friends wherever they are. You will become a shliach in this. It's your job to tell everyone what real beauty is all about. And so we could say that that's what happens when the chassan goes to the kala. For the badeking, he's covering her face with a shmata. Well, he's throwing a shmata on her face. It's a disgust. No, it's a symbolism here that I'm not looking at your external qualities. I am primarily marrying what? The soul, the person on the inside. The outside is just a mask. It's just a shmata. That's the outside. Of course, the outside, as we said before, if you have a real soul, then the outside becomes glowing. It's beautiful. You have an aura. But we need to not be distracted by the outside and to recognize that the primary importance is what's on the inside. That's that's perhaps one of the reasons for decking, for the covering. But I'm going to tell you now, which is the most Kabbalistic explanation. And that is that we know that the marriage is a process of a hayya l'basar echad, of becoming one. Give me a second here. Give me a second. Becoming one flesh. That's what marriage is about. So it's a process of becoming closer to each other. And so in the Kabbalah, it speaks about the male being the mashpia, the giver, and the woman being the receiver. Now, some people say, what does that mean? A woman is the receiver. Well, she also gives. Of course she gives. But you see under the chuppah, the male is the one that gives the ring and the woman receives the ring. Who is greater? The one that gives, the one who receives. Well, you could ask the same question. Who is greater, teacher or the students? The one that gives the teaching or the one that receives it? Now, I'll venture to say that the one that receives it is more important. Because whatever ideas I have is all through the questions I get from my students, or when I give to you, I'm receiving far more by giving it to you from you than you're receiving from me. Think about that. In all relationships in life, that works that way. Who is greater? Who has more pleasure? The mother giving the milk or the child receiving the milk? Right? Something like that. Every giving and receiving is a two-way street. So there is a very, very deep mystical part to being the vessel. So we have lights and vessels. So you have marriage, you have the male, the masculine, and the feminine that come together. The male and the female. One is the giver and one is the receiver. Let's not look at it as receiver. Let's call it the nurturer, if you want to call it that. Okay. There is the one that slays the dragons of this world, the other one that receives the blessing. So, and nurtures the family, etc. So that's the mother, it's the wife. But there's a process of the becoming one flesh, of these two levels, the masculine and the feminine, coming together. There are different levels. So the first level that you have is them breaking the ice and becoming one. So the first level that you do to become one is placing of the veil over the bride's face. And then later we have the ring ceremony. He places the ring on her. And then ultimately you go together in one room. And then it's finalized with the act of intimacy. So as you see over here, it's sort of a process, and we have to understand the spiritual side of that process, how masculine and the feminine, they become one in the ultimate act of intimacy. But before that, there are preludes to it. There's preparations to it. And one of them is placing the veil over the bride's face. And it's almost like when you study, let's say, if we use the example, the analogy that we used before of the teacher and the students as the analogy of marriage. A second here, if we use that as the analogy for marriage, the teacher and the students, many teachers will, before they start to teach, even the idea itself, before they give the concept to the students, will usually open up their class with a joke or something interesting or something humorous before they start the class, to grab the attention of the students. Now, one could say that's just some kind of a trick, right? That rabbis also do the same thing when they start to speak. They start with a joke, usually, or something, or an episode, or to get everybody's attention. But that's what it appears to be. It appears to be like a trick to capture someone's attention, right? You need to get the hook to get the people engaged, and then you can teach them whatever you want. But it's the beginning of the process of educating. In other words, you disarm the students by gaining their trust and getting their attention and getting their minds adjusted to you in an engaging way. And then you can drop in, once you have their attention, boom, you could give them the information. Like as a rabbi, I do that. Like I'll do a joke at the beginning and everybody, ha, 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 they're laughing. The second they say, ha, 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 I have their attention for another 3 seconds after that, for sure. So I know that I have them, they're eating out of my hand now. But now I got to give them the boom. I have to give them the idea that I really want to teach them. And that's when I tell them the parsha, or whatever the idea for the Torah, because I have now a few seconds to give them a deep thought. But it starts off with that act of disarming them and engaging them in a process of education. And only after that do we actually create that intellectual intimacy, if you can call it that, right? Because when you're sharing ideas, that's an intellectual intimacy. So, but first we need to engage them. We need to disarm them. We need to build the trust, and that's what the joke is. So, likewise, we have external ceremonies which happen before the intimacy, the spiritual intimacy, which comes later on, and the physical intimacy, which comes between the bride and the groom. The first thing we do is something getting close to each other, not yet touching, not yet anything, just placing a little, like a little veil over the Kala's face. That's moving in the right direction and disarming each other to be prepared for the holiness which is going to come soon in the marriage ceremony, and then ultimately when they're going to become one person, one flesh, and ultimately they're going to bring another piece of God into this world through the act of marriage. Another soul is going to come in with the child, right? So this is all the preparation for that. So this whole spiritual exercise here that's going on is a preparation for the marriage. So it's like they're coming close to each other, but not yet one. So it's almost like the Mimer explains it. It's almost like the teacher teaches the student. So they give them first a joke, or they give them something to open the mind, to create that connection, to create that intimacy. And usually by the badecking, I also allow them for a bracha, that it's customary then that the parents bless the bride, and they do so later on also for the groom. But at the actual badecking, the custom is to bless the bride. Usually the rabbi, someone else will say the same blessing that was given to Rivka when she arrived on the camels with Eliezer, the very first Jewish marriage. So the blessing was given, Achotenu, our sister, Atayil Alfi Revava, may you be the mother of myriads. The years Zarech Eshar Sainov, and may your children be successful in the world. So it's a blessing to be fruitful, to multiply, to have many children, and at that moment, I always find that that's a very, very sort of romantic moment at the badecking, because when the chassan comes in, he sees the bride for the first time in a while, and the custom is, the tradition is not for the bride and groom not to see each other for 7 days before. I don't know if many of you know that or not, but there is such a custom. Some people do it just from the Shabbos before, others do it on the day itself. That's like the first time they see each other, just before the wedding, about to go to the chuppah. and they lock eyes. They lock eyes as he's coming in, and she's looking at him. She looks up. Usually the girls usually read Psalms. They read Tehillim when the chassid comes in, and they lock eyes. I always find that to be a very, very powerful moment. The locking of eyes. It's also an external connection through sight, right? But again, this whole process is it moves us to the next level. And so when the bride and the groom are coming together on such an emotional moment, the rabbi goes and blesses the bride then, and the parents, I usually call up the parents, or if the grandparents are alive, they also come and they give the bride a bracha, and they place their hand over her head, as is customary to do brachas that way. And they'll say either the blessing of the Kohanim, the blessing of Yisimech. We do many beautiful blessings at that moment, and it's a very powerful time. And usually I see the mothers crying, and everybody's like, just like, the child is getting married. It's a very special moment for parents and grandparents. So you can't replicate it. So when you go through it, it's a very powerful moment in time. And like I said, I explained to you 3 reasons. The first one is because of the switcheroo, that we should get the right bride and groom. Second reason was to probe deeper than the surface, to remind us that really we're marrying the chen, the inner person, not the outer person. And the third reason I gave you was in the process of the bonding of the bride and groom, there are many levels, like a teacher and a student, and the first thing is the joke that comes at the beginning of the class. So this is also like the first external connection to start getting engaged into the marriage ceremony, the marriage process. See, it's only 11:32, but I'm going to end today right now. Anyone have any questions on this thing that we spoke about today, about the badecking? Next week we'll continue with the chuppah. So who's got any questions? Anybody? You could unmute yourself if you have any questions. Anybody? Anyone want to say hello?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Okay, you're welcome.
I love listening to
Thank you, Rabbi.
marriage and all the goodies.
I have a question, Rabbi.
A question. Baruch Hashem. Okay, go ahead.
I always thought cane was what you put on the brisket or on
That's chrein with an R.
Oh, grain. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now that's a problem. You see, if she has chrein instead of well, then you're in trouble. Then there's a real oomph in the marriage. You want to.
That's what I was saying. I thought maybe you put the shine on the brisket.
No. That's it. No. But maybe brings out the chrein, brings out the beauty of it. There's 2 separate words, nothing to do one with the other. Chrein is something you eat on
Gefilte fish.
gefilte fish. You eat it on Pesach. The horseradish and the chrein was left on the plane in Spain.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for explaining that.
But not the chen. The chen
The same stays. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all the best. Have a good
Thank
week.
you.
Good week.